I switched to the Neural DSP Quad Cortex after my Helix broke, and within the first 2 months of seriously using it, I realized there are things about the QC that bother me. Today I'm sharing 5 things I wish I knew about the QC before I spend money on it, and stick around because these might be deal breakers for you if you're looking to switch.
Back the chorus. Get straight in, yeah? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Let me be clear, today's video isn't bashing the Quad Cortex. I think it sounds great, both stock sounds and captures. I wouldn't say it sounds better, it's just different in a good way. It's smaller than the Helix but offers more DSP. I find that I can cram a lot more effects into the signal chain, and I end up not using them all because the sounds are just that good without needing extensive use of compression and EQ tricks. But there's no such thing as a perfect device, and so without further ado, problem number 1. It's not that pedalboard friendly. QC users fall into 2 camps. Those dedicated to using the QC as an all-in-one, and those who want to supplement the QC as much as possible. I tried the latter approach, as I've heard it's part of best practices not to overload the QC CPU by running giant signal chains, but I was running into a problem. It's honestly not that pedalboard friendly. It's a momentous day. If you know, you know. You recognize this red pamphlet or this red box cover. I finally got my hands on one. I hadn't realized this was going to be such a big box, but let's open it up and see what's inside. First of all, Quad Cortex cutouts. That's a pretty long USB cable, very important. Power supply, also important, just in case something goes wrong. And let me just check the requirements. This is output 12 volts, 3 amps. This is a big boy. How is this attached? This way? Unfortunately, I wish these adapters came in the opposite orientation where it might be easier to fit under the stage or those like power sockets on the floor or on the wall, but you know, I don't get why they're made this way, but they are. So, and of course, the main event in all its glory. This is huge, quite literally. It's not first-hand. Neural DSP did not send this to me. It's not sponsored. I bought this secondhand from a dear friend. Quick story in the power of Instagram. I was posting about the pedalboard planner build I was planning for this pedal board, where I eventually have this plus maybe an expression pedal and maybe one other pedal on the board. Very inspired by Candice Sattler's rig or Brandon Williams' rig. I had to get one because I have a tone workshop with Sweely coming up on 16 September. Not sure whether this is going to come up before then. And I figured I needed my own unit so that I can possibly do some practice on my own before building a live preset at the event proper. I underwent a Goldilocks phase of finding the right rig size, from it being too big and bulky with a pedal train fly to it being too small with the QC by itself. And now just right with 3 notable additions: a dedicated volume wah pedal, a MIDI clock to change tempo without changing presets, and a small MIDI controller to switch between the various screens on the QC. But rig size isn't as serious a problem when you can modify the rig to suit your needs. These next issues are inherent in the design and implementation of the QC. Problem number 2, long boot time. Remember your Windows 95 PC back in the day? You could press the power button, go away, make a coffee, catch up on the office gossip at the water cooler, go for a quick run, come back, and the thing still hasn't booted up. That's the Quad Cortex. For those on tight stage turnaround times, you will want to turn the QC on as soon as possible and pray that you don't get a power cut in the middle of your set. You're looking at a 90-second downtime, which is unacceptable when playing live. Problem number 3, stock power supply issues. If you're running this as an all-in-one, you'd want to use just the stock power supply. Notwithstanding the design issues of it being fragile, bulky, and generally low quality, there's a bigger noise problem. When using this, you can introduce grounding noise and hum. The solution isn't a good one as it requires additional purchases, relying on third-party power supplies. My Mono Small already had a Chiox DC7 mounted underneath, so it made the most sense for me to spend under $100 for the Chiox Crux, which takes a 24-volt tap from the DC7 and converts it to stable and clean 12-volt power for the QC. But for anyone else, that DC7 is going to cost another $300. Your next best option, which is not going to cost a lot less but have a much smaller integrated form factor, is the Walrus Audio Canvas Power HP. Speaking of best options, if you found value in this video, please consider liking, subscribing, and hitting that bell icon to grow the channel, join the community, and get YouTube to send this out to more people. Thank you. Problem number 4, the tap tempo screen. For every device that I know of, whenever you press the tap tempo button, what happens is that you only see a change in the BPM in the top right hand corner or some unobtrusive, nothing that overtakes the screen. This is not so with the QC. Check out what happens when I press the tap tempo button. It will go into a metronome screen. Okay, you tap it in. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. There's about 3 whole seconds that the tap tempo screen is up. When the screen is up, you can change themes and all that, but you have no idea what those scenes are because the screen is being overtaken by the tap tempo. I would have to memorize what those scenes are, scene E being my clean, F being my crunch, G being my lead, so on and so forth. But if you don't have the presence of mind to remember what the scenes are, you are going in blind. And if you should so accidentally nudge the knobs just a little bit to change the parameter, screen stays on forever. One workaround that I found is that when you have a MIDI controller connected to the Quad Cortex, go into the tap tempo screen, and if you want to get out of this screen as fast as possible, press the gig button to get out of tap tempo to go back into gig view. Or what I prefer to do is use an external MIDI clock like the Canvas clock and set up a tap tempo with the buttons here. Tempo's changing, but the screen doesn't change. This is why I have the Canvas clock on a small board like this just to control the Quad Cortex. It allows me to have one preset on the Quad Cortex and change the tempo with different tempo presets on the Canvas clock. That way I don't get the hijacking of the screen with tap tempo and I don't get the preset gap between presets. As powerful as the Quad Cortex is, it still does not have the DSP to do gapless switching, or otherwise known as preset spillover. Problem number 5, authentic delay pitch shift. So you've loaded up the analog delay, you have a pretty high mix and a pretty low feedback. Let's just turn it up for demonstration's sake and hear how this sounds like. Very nice. But here's what happens when you try to change the time value via tap tempo. That pitch shift with the repeats is authentic to analog devices, and on some modelers you can disable that authentic pitch shift. And it seems like we're stuck with this in the Quad Cortex. I haven't found a setting to disable authentic pitch shift. Maybe if you have, put it in the comments because I can't figure this out. And so far the only remedy to avoid all of this is to choose a digital style delay. For example, the simple delay, if I just turn this up to mix and feedback, same settings. No pitch shifting with digital style delays. Here are 2 bonus minor problems that might tick you off. The first minor annoyance is that every time you load up a volume pedal in the Quad Cortex, so let's say you've got this preset, you really like it, you want to use it for recording, you put in a volume pedal, you set this up with the expression pedal, you're ready to go, then you head on over to your digital audio workstation, you click the stop button to go back to the beginning. If you press stop too many times, like twice, there's nothing, there's no sound. For some reason, clicking on the stop button 2 times on your digital audio workstation, it mutes the volume pedal on the Quad Cortex. And this is not unique to Quad Cortex, it also happens on the Helix. Obviously, the stop button on the DAW is sending out a MIDI signal to mute the volume pedal, and I don't know why it's doing that, which is why I prefer not to have volume pedals in my signal chain and instead rely on a dedicated volume wah pedal on my pedal board. Secondly, the touchscreen might be over-engineered, but it's one bad fall or an unfortunate guitar drop away from a screen crack. I've installed a screen protector on my QC which uses a combination of magnetic studs and plastic hinges to hold the protector in place. You won't be able to operate the screen with the protector down, hence the hinges to prop the protector up. I provide links to where you can find this, but it's from a store in Indonesia, so apologies to you guys who live outside of Southeast Asia. Fellow QC users from the US, UK, and everywhere else, what protectors do you use? Put them in the comments below. In conclusion, the Quad Cortex sounds amazing, but it does have its flaws, as does any other piece of gear. The key is in understanding if these flaws outweigh the tone, and so I encourage you to try out all gear physically and not just watch YouTube videos. But I want to know, do these 5 things put you off the Quad Cortex? Did I miss anything out? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you in this next video breaking down how I've been setting these QC tones. Spoiler, they're from my Helix. Interested? See you there.